Aye.
Okay. Thank you, everybody, and welcome to the Council Cabinet today, 21st of November. Sorry about the room change. Proceedings happening in the chamber. So that's why we're in here. Do we have any apologies? Smith. Been made aware of any late items or petitions or any items where calling will not apply? Any declarations of interest, Cabinet? Okay. So our last meeting on the 11th of October. Those are the true record, please. You, Councillor Field, Councillor Whitby. Okay. Matters referred to. Sorry, yeah, under matters referred, recommendation from the Scrutiny Board. Welcome, Councillor Poulter as chair of that board. We'll deal with those as usual at each item as they come up. So, first key decision under item 8 is the Castle Ward Urban Village acquisitions and budget update. Councillor Peatfield.
Thank you, Chair. Castle Ward, as I'm sure everybody around this room knows by now, is a hugely important programme in our city centre regeneration ambitions. The programme is delivered through a partnership agreement with Homes England and Compendium Living, the developers. 220 new homes have already been created there, with more than 300 currently under construction. On top of that, we delivered a new primary school, play area, a high quality boulevard connecting the railway station to the city centre, and a number of business units. New housing at Castle Ward brings massive benefits to the city, from capacity in the construction sector and its supply chain through to the spending power of local residents and supporting local businesses. It's a sustainable development, it's close to public transport links, it reduces pressure on the release of greenfield land. It's also providing an exemplar in terms of affordable housing, because the scheme is in line with our targets and policies. So the report today is seeking Cabinet's approval to move ahead with the final phase of compulsory purchase before the powers we have secured expire next year. We secured powers in 2021 and have progressed the compulsory purchase in phases since then. That's helped to manage the cost risk and ensure that we line up the land acquisition with Compendium's build programme. That's worked really well so far, but obviously there's a deadline looming now, and we do have to press on with that compulsory purchase. I'm sure we're all familiar with the inflationary pressures that construction are facing, and with that, we need to increase the capital programme to fund the final phase of the acquisitions. That is not to say that is, while it's an increased capital, it is not at a cost to the council. This is actually being funded by an increased financial contribution from Compendium Living. So the report sets out the terms of our agreement with Compendium, the programme for delivering more phases of housing, and the key risks and options explored to inform the recommendations. Personally, I am delighted that we're pushing forward with the next phase. Derby needs this attractive gateway from the train station, and these 112 new homes will contribute to that. As I said, it's one of the key city regeneration projects that will help to bring people back into the city centre. We just recently celebrated the opening of phase 3, and we look forward to seeing the next round of homes take shape over the coming years. I would just like to thank also Homes England and Compendium Living for their ongoing partnership with us on this really important city centre project. Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Peatfield. The Exec Scrutiny Board resolved to note this report. You Exec Scrutiny. Cabinet members, any other contributions? No, I just endorse Councillor Peatfield. Thanks for both Compendium Living, one of our strategic and important partners, providing much needed residential accommodation in our city, along with a number of others, which is good to see. It's good to see these firms investing and having confidence in Derby to do so. And again, thanks to Homes England, and hopefully we continue attracting support from Homes England for a number of our other schemes. I thought I saw Ian Philippa walking in somewhere behind me. There he is. So thanks, Ian, for all the work you do with Homes England. Okay, all those in favour of the report and recommendations 2.1 through 2.3. Councillor Khan, that's carried. Thank you. Moving on to our next item, 9, compulsory acquisition of empty homes. Councillor Khan.
Thank you, Chair. This report seeks to purchase 3 empty homes. But we believe that all empty properties should be brought back into use. I welcome this report. One of the first things I did upon becoming a cabinet member was to ask officers to look at ways to bring back empty properties into use, either through enforcement or compulsory purchase. Empty properties are not only a blight on the local area, but they're also troublesome for neighbours and immediate neighbours, attracting fly tipping, all sorts of antisocial behaviour, and infestations. There's considerable financial loss when you consider the number of properties that are empty, the amount of sort of council tax we're losing. So to bring back these properties and other properties are sort of beneficial in every way that you can think of financially, and also bringing them back into use helps with the waiting lists that are people are on it, and also with our local plan. These 3 properties, I'll just go through them briefly and
not naming the properties at this stage of the report, Councillor Khan. Not naming the properties in this stage.
No, that's for later. I was just going to say. Property 1 has been empty since 2019. There is no meaningful contact with the owner. Currently, the council tax area stand at 7,500, and without our intervention, this property is likely to stay empty and accrue more council tax liability, and increasing our legal costs in trying to get them back. Property 2 has also been empty since 2019. It's jointly owned by 2 owners. Although through our contact with them, there has been some sporadic work, and basically it's very slow in progress. And again, without our intervention, this property would not come back into use. Property 3 has been vacant since 2016, and there has been little or no contact with the owner, even though we have offered our assistance in any way possible. But the owner has not come back with any meaningful, well, with any contact really. And I believe that if we don't go ahead with it, it will just stay empty and incur more costs from us in terms of legal enforcement. So I believe we have no choice but to try and purchase these properties and hopefully bring them back into use for families and other residents. So I fully support this report.
Thank you very much, Mr. Councillor Khan. Sorry. The Exec Scrutiny Board also resolved to note this report. Any other contributions? Councillor Hazelgrove.
Just to highlight the fact that should these 3 properties be bought by the council and renovated to a higher standard in terms of green energy efficient, it helps on that, but it also helps on the fact that we desperately in need of housing, and these are in good areas, and could be ideal placements with good schools in the area.
Absolutely, totally agree with that.
Yeah.
I think what we do have to be mindful of the number of reports that come through the council every year are really important to start the process. But as soon as these formally are endorsed here, it acts as a tool to get occupiers or current members to pull their finger out and get their properties put back into use. So thankfully, we don't have to exercise too many compulsory purchase acquisitions ourselves, because it does exactly what we intend it to do, and it makes the homeowners take some action. Okay, so recommendations 2.1 and 2.2 on pages 1 and then goes on into page 2. All those in favour, please. Thank you. That's carried. Moving on to item 10, the budget and policy framework 23-24 to financial monitoring report. So again, let me just start by, I'm sure everybody's aware, but putting this into a little bit of national context and where Derby sits. Everybody would have seen in the news the problems and the situation at Birmingham City Council. Countries, if not Europe's largest local authority, issued a Section 114 notice recently in September, signalling that it does not have the resources to manage its budgets. And the impact of that is pretty immense. The council basically is limited in what it can do now around the ability to any discretionary spend, and it's limited to the protection of vulnerable people and the statutory services it provides, and that's all they can do. As we've heard, commissioners have now been appointed by government, which will only add, in my view, to the overall cost burden of the local authority, because they'll end up having to, I'm sure, pay for those commissioners. It's a situation which we desperately want to avoid here in Derby, but other local authorities across the country from various political persuasions are having to follow this route, including Woking, Croydon, Slough, and we've heard neighbouring local authorities here, again, from differing political persuasions, struggling to balance the finances. And we know local government finances have been under pressure more than a decade. This council alone has had to make savings of over £226 million. The cumulative effect of that over that time here in Derby is around £1 billion now. It's a massive amount of money and reduction in spending power that the council, again under different administrations, would have been able to invest in our city and supporting our residents. It's just not there. Our teams are still doing an amazing job in trying to make sure every penny is spent wisely, but the number of pressures that we're under just continue to grow, whether it's adult social care, which has seen an increase in costs around mental health services for younger adults as they have complex places transitioning from children's social care. Within social care itself, the placement cost pressures totaling just over £4 million, and that's whilst the number of children in care is actually going down, cost of placements is going up, and that's a worrying sign. The pressure on our housing benefit subsidy and discretionary payments is over £2 million. We have more and more people not being able to afford their rents, not being able to afford their mortgages with the sky-high interest rates that we see, and cost of living crisis. So more and more people are being stuck in temporary accommodation, and the bill to the council is increasing. I, along with our finance director and chief exec, met the now previous local government minister to lobby for Derby's position, and we just didn't complain about the situation we're in. We talked about our ideas on how Derby could be helped. And I have to say the local government minister at the time, although he's now changed roles, did listen to us tentatively, said he would look at our situation. No promises made, and I didn't expect any, but we did offer solutions as well as discuss the problems that we face. Let's hope tomorrow about this time of day, maybe a little bit earlier than this, we receive some positive news, and government hopefully listens to the voice of not just Derby City Council but other local authorities, and I know the LGA are doing lots of work to highlight the difficulties that local councils are under. So our financial position for this financial year, although I know many officers in many departments are working extremely hard to mitigate the overspend this year, the position as it remains is slightly worse than it was at Q1. So more work needs to be done, but I'm pretty confident given what I know is happening and the level of work going into control costs. We hope to report a more favourable position at the end of Q3, and any savings we make for the whole year, but quarter by quarter, will be significant when it comes to not just balancing this year's budget as closely as we can, but also setting the budget for future years, because our reserve position, as everyone knows, is in a very difficult position after years of reliance on reserves to balance the council's finances. I won't go through every figure, and in the report it does talk about our revenue position, our capital budget position, our reserves position, the HRA, ESG and collection rates. It's all listed in the report. I'll go to the exec scrutiny's recommendations next from yesterday. Councillor Poulter, do you want to present those?
Yeah, thank you. A close look at this Q2 update. Whilst it was noted, you just mentioned the reserves. Whilst it was noted that this report relies on the fallback position of maybe having to use reserves, which was a little remarkable for us. In the last 5 years, we've had nothing but comment about using reserves. But in March, April and May this year, and since you took control, you've pledged a root and branch review of the remarkable.
Stick to the recommendations of the scrutiny board rather than reword the whole debate, Councillor Poulter.
Since March, April and May this year, you promised a root and branch review of the remarkable budget that was passed in February. And as a result of not having heard anything of this review or any additional savings being brought forward, the Executive Scrutiny Board resolved to recommend to Cabinet that in the interest of accountability and good governance, a paper documenting the decisions made in the course of this root and branch review of the 23-24 budget, as set out in the 24-25 budget. This paper should comprise all the decisions and changes that have been made or are made, and as part of the review, find applications and what the financial implications of these were, including the allocation of any additional funding and then the allocation of any additional savings.
Thank you, Councillor Poulter. Cabinet. Councillor Swan.
Yeah, I think we all find these financial challenges difficult across all our portfolios, and I'm sure other councillors in other areas when we've been asked to deliver basic services. I hope that future is not based on one-off grants. I'm certainly finding it extremely challenging in my portfolio, where I'm reliant on one-off grants to deliver vital services. And it's extremely disappointing, and I hope that the future looks like.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Vaughan. Yes, that's a really important point, and let alone one-off grants. Single year settlements is not helpful at all to local authorities. But they promised 3-year settlements for God knows how many years, and yet to see one. Just addressing the recommendations from exec scrutiny. I mean, yeah, Councillor Martin in a second.
Did you
Just
want
address.
It was it wasn't specifically in response to the recommendation, so do you want to speak on that?
I'll do the recommendation,
Yeah,
and I'll bring it. I can appreciate exec scrutiny's recommendations. What I still find unbelievable is the council refers to the budget that we've inherited as remarkable, because it's anything but remarkable. And it's a shame your current group leader isn't here today, because I think he'd be somewhat embarrassed by those claims that it was a remarkable budget. It's a very unfortunate budget. It was a bad budget at the time it was set. It's a bad budget we inherited. It's a bad budget we're trying to deliver and make good. We've made a number of decisions and changes. They've all been documented. They've all come through the various appropriate approval levels. So if they needed to come back to cabinet, they've come back to cabinet. What I'm not going to do is ask officers to provide another report just for the sake of members on exec scrutiny to go through, because the details are all there in the public domain, and they can be accessed. Officers working extremely hard, trying to do whatever they can to make this year's finances balance and provide a position for next year's budget. And I'd rather officers focus on that. And like I've said earlier on, I strongly do believe by the time we get to Q3, we'll be in a improved position from where we are now. So I don't agree with the recommendation made by executive scrutiny.
Can I ask?
Councillor Martin.
Chair, sorry.
Councillor Martin. Let me just bring Councillor Martin, and I might come back to you, Councillor Bolton. Councillor Martin.
It's a general point.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, thank you. So I think in truth, I think all councillors, not only this council, but across the country, know that there's very little room to manoeuvre now on local government budgets. And I don't, you can try and attribute blame for that one way or another, but it is where we are. We had the funding from government as a proportion of the council's budget started to decrease over 10 years ago, and that trend has continued. And sort of, you know, as Councillor Swan has just said, we're increasingly relying on one-off bits of money, particularly actually also in areas like adult social care, which are actually extremely welcome and do make a big difference. But overall, there are many issues. But if you take the adult social care scenario, it's very clear and right. Everybody knows that we need a national plan for care. We need an agreed understanding of how it's to be funded, and we need that to be implemented in a strategic way with all sorts of elements in it. But crucially, a long-term plan for how it's going to be properly funded. We don't have that at the moment, so it is an area where we're seeing increasing demand. But I think in the context of the council's budget overall, it's worth remembering that whilst we're ever at this pressurised point where we're having to intervene and give more and more care that's very expensive, the demand is increasing, there's less and less money for preventative measures, for ways of helping people help themselves. And this is really important. And this is actually what should be a council's forte, say, compared to the health aspects of the NHS. And sadly, it's harder and harder for councils to perform that function. So increasingly, we're seeing more and more people unwell, which only adds to the economic downturn, fewer people in the economy working, more costs on health, more costs on benefits, etc. So I think that instead of seeing the health and adult social care work, and we do work in public health in this council as well, as some kind of burden on the council, we ought to see it as something that is really, really helping the local community, helping the local economy, and ought to be celebrated for what they are achieving in terms of basically maintaining a civilized city. But in reality, we need a government that will recognise that we need a proper plan for that, and we need enough funds to put money into preventative measures. And at the moment, you know, as we carry on with these budgets where we're just about getting through, we're only building up problems, increased problems for the future. So unfortunately, that's where we're at, and it's not a position any of us want to be in.
Absolutely, Councillor Martin. Thank you. Councillor Poulter, was it on the recommendation you wanted to come back in on?
Yes, because I just trying to seek clarity that this review of the budget has been, is it completed? And if it is, I don't understand. I know of a couple of examples of libraries and Ashgate Nursery where things have been changed. But what I and the public don't understand is where you've achieved or where you intend to make other savings to account for the changes that you've made. And if the budget was that bad, you know, why aren't there only 2 or 3 things that you've actually changed?
Thank you, Councillor Poulter. Look, we'll share any details that you want. You only have to ask to meet me, ask to meet the finance officers, and we'll share those details. What I'm not prepared to do, as I've said, is ask officers to do detailed reports just because you can't seemingly bother to go through cabinet reports and find those details. And I wouldn't class Ashgate Nursery, saving Ashgate Nursery from closure and saving our libraries from closure as a couple of minor things. They're pretty significant things that this administration in its early days has managed to keep open and secure for the public of Derby. And I wouldn't dismiss those as a couple of minor.
You haven't explained to the public.
Thank you, Councillor Poulter. Okay, Cabinet recommendations 2.1 A through to H and 2.2 on page 2, item 10. Those in favour? Okay, and under contract and financial procedure matters, item 11, compliance with contract and financial procedure rules. It's me again. So a bid for the acceptance of just over £1.6 million, £1.6 million from the Development Education Funded Recruitment and Retention Programme. The D2N2 authorities have successfully applied to join the Department for Education's Fostering Recruitment and Retention Programme. The council, as the lead for the D2N2 partnership, will receive this money. And acceptance of a revised repayment plan for an existing Derby Enterprise Growth Fund loan. More details are in the confidential item under the confidential report. So that's they're the 2 items. Recommendations are there in 2.1 to 2.3 of the report. That's all I need to say on that one. The exec scrutiny board resolved to note the report. Exec scrutiny. Cabinet, any comments? Okay, all those in favour then, please. Thank you. That's carried. Item 1 under performance, the 2023-24 Q2 performance monitoring report is under item 12. So the purpose of the report is to present colleagues with the latest result on our performance, priority projects and the strategic risks at the end of the Q2, which was September this year. The report also presents revised 23-24 targets for our priority performance measures for approval. It should be noted that it's the first monitoring report against the updated council delivery plan which was agreed and approved by Cabinet in September. The report sets out details of many of the achievements of our colleagues and partners across the council and the city. And I want to thank them all for their contributions. Our city, our river, for protecting more homes and businesses, creating new jobs, supporting more people to live independently, and internally supporting fewer days lost due to sickness absence, are all achievements noted in the report. We do, however, continue to face a number of strategic risks and challenges, but we're working creatively as possible to mitigate these with regular assurances and adequacy control measures. Cabinet is asked to approve the recommendations in the report on page 1, starting at 2.1 to 2.3. Exec Scrutiny Board, item 12, made 2 recommendations. Councillor Bolter, do you want to talk us through those recommendations?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, the Exec Board gave quite a lot of time to the performance monitoring report and considerations, because they feel how important the monitoring report is, and in particular they wanted to highlight 2 issues to you. One is in relation to the establishment of a new local plan, and some concerns about the timescales, in that when members of the review board have asked about it, they've been told that the review is on time, on schedule, but with no details. And previously it was discussed that a cross-party working group would be established, and the review board wants to urge Cabinet to ensure that this happens and the meeting is convened as soon as possible. So that was the first one. And do you want to deal with the second one now?
Sure.
So in addition to that, as a general point in relation to performance monitoring, I think members expressed the view that maybe not sufficient weight was given to the role of performance monitoring in keeping on top of where we are and our targets and key performance indicators. So the recommendation is that we ask Cabinet that the Scrutiny Review Board are able to receive and consider as part of their work plans a presentation and discussion on the quarterly performance monitoring, covering their areas of interest, so that they're able to pick out any items that they might wish to review or topic review.
Thank you, Councillor Bolter. I'm happy to agree with both of those, because I think it's both of them should be happening now. The commitment to have a cross-party working group, is there, and we can urge officers to get that arranged when the time is right, for that to be a meaningful review. And the second one, again, prepared to accept it, but it shouldn't be for Cabinet to be setting the agendas for scrutiny boards. The chairs and vice chairs have a responsibility to make sure their work plans and agendas are set to be challenging for the members of those scrutiny boards, and they're absolutely entitled to ask for a report on the relevant quarterly performance monitoring indicators for their boards. If it needs the Cabinet to instruct chairs to do that, then we're more than happy to do that. But I'd hope chairs of the individual boards are setting meaningful and challenging work programs for their scrutiny boards. So again, not a problem with that. Councillor Hazelgrave.
Just the issue of topic reviews by scrutiny boards was mentioned. I think this is potentially a really, really effective way of deep dive into issues and making some recommendations that could really be very helpful in terms of decision making, actually providing better services. But it is getting late in the day for scrutiny review boards to be actually formulating a review topic and getting on with it, because time's running out, and they've already missed some meetings, so I would hope that in general, scrutiny review boards have actually identified and are into some work on a topic. And it may be that it's a bit too late to start looking at another one as well. So it's about capacity to deal with things effectively and really come out with some really good recommendations. But I think the principle is sound.
Thank you, councillor Hasselgrave. Any other contributions? Hey, oh, sorry, councillor Biggs.
I just wanted to thank Heather and the team for this report and the work that's gone in behind it. There are some great, really impressive improvements in this last quarter, and you know, I just think that it's kind of gone unsaid a little bit in this report. But you know, considering the financial stresses that we're under, considering the capacity or the lack of capacity that we have, we're still making incredible improvements in our performance. And just look at recommendation 2.3 to note that there are no areas recommended for a performance or a risk surgery. Just shows that actually, you know, that there is we're going in the right direction. So thank you, Heather. Please pass that on to the team. Thank you.
Thank you very much, councillor Bigfield. I'm sure the whole cabinet endorses those comments. So cabinet recommendations 2.1 to 2.3. All those in favour? You. Okay, item 30, there's a resolution for the exclusion of the press and public. Note that selector's gone already. All those in favour of the resolution at item 30? You cabinet. That one will stop recording.